The member for Mackellar.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question's to the Treasurer. Will the Treasurer outline for the House what the government is doing to deliver for small businesses across Australia, including in the electorate of Bennelong, and why policy certainty in corporate taxes is so critical for small businesses?
The Treasurer has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Mackellar for his question. In the electorate of Bennelong, there are 7,900 incorporated businesses with a turnover of less than $50 million who will benefit from the legislative tax cuts of the Turnbull government. And in addition to that, there are 9,700 unincorporated individual small businesses who will also benefit from those tax cuts. So some almost 18,000 businesses there in the electorate of Bennelong, small and medium-sized businesses, many of them run by people who have come to this country full of entrepreneurial spirit, the Korean small business community, the Chinese small business community, the Indian national small business community up there in Bennelong, highly entrepreneurial. Those 18,000 businesses all benefiting from tax cuts that have been legislated by this parliament that they can count on so long as there is a Turnbull government to make sure that they stay in place. Now, that is part of some 125,000 incorporated entities who also are benefiting from these changes all around the country. Now, Mr Speaker, they want to know one thing, and they want to know one thing before the by-election in Bennelong from the Leader of the Opposition and from the Shadow Treasurer, and that is, will the Labor Party reverse the legislated tax cuts that have been put in place by this government, Mr Speaker? And they need to know it by the time of that by-election. And if they don't know it by the time of that by-election, you can be sure that a Labor government will reverse the tax cuts that have been legislated by this parliament. I'll tell you why. Because there is $25 billion worth of revenue attached to reversing those tax cuts. Every time you hear the Labor Party say $65 billion worth of corporate tax cuts that we don't need, that we can't afford and shouldn't go ahead, what they are telling the small businesses in Bennelong, the medium-sized businesses, is they will remove your tax cuts, the legislated tax cuts. And they need to know by the date of the by-election, and the Shadow Treasurer, when asked, is, I'll tell you at another time, at a time of my convenience, well ahead of the next election. Well, no, they need to know now. They need to know now. He sits there and shakes his head. He says, no, they don't. With total contempt for small and medium-sized business owners in Bennelong, 18,000 of them, he is saying that he will refuse to tell them whether they're going to keep their tax cuts under a Labor government. Now, that's what we've come to expect from the Labor Party when it comes to understanding that under their policies they will strand businesses in this country on a tax island uncompetitive with the rest of the world. The IMF has recently warned against, with the US moving now even closer towards the tax cuts they're putting in place for businesses and investment in the United States, that only heightens the risk to the Australian economy. The Labor Party is a risk to jobs, they are a risk to growth in our economy, and they are a risk to every one of the 18,000 small businesses in Bennelong.